Act 3 of Romeo and Juliet. We're going to be breaking down this act. I thought I'd make another video for you since the last one was kind of fun to make. And
did you steal my stuff?
What stuff?
Is that my
PowerPoint? No, this is my video, not a PowerPoint.
I think you stole my stuff again.
And I stole your stuff again. I guess we'll both do it this time together.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Important things that we need to remember about Act 3 and what it is in charge of trying to do for us. The first thing is we are cycling away from hope and back towards chaos. And in order to do that, we need somebody or something to threaten that hope. So I guess all we have to do is think about who maybe has a bit of a grudge.
And like in the initial piece and setup for this, we know now that Tybalt has challenged Romeo. We know that he has a grudge, and we know that he's a really good sword fighter. And so we know that something has to be happening soon.
That's true.
Romeo! The love I bear thee can afford no better term than this. Thou art a villain, therefore turn and draw.
Tybalt, I do protest. I never injured thee, but love thee better than thou canst
Oh, thou
devise.
wretched boy, I am for you. I am slain.
It's a little more complicated than that.
So Shakespeare is not subtle about having just a fight. It's more than a fight. It's first a fight with Tybalt, then a fight with Mercutio, then a fight with Romeo. Basically, Tybalt shows up and is all like, "Where's Romeo?" And Mercutio's like, "He's not here, dude." And then Mercutio's like, "Well, you can go ahead and fight me, because I'm totally up for a fight." And so this whole back and forth keeps going on, and then Romeo does show up and says, "Yeah, you know, I don't want to fight, because we're bros, guy, but I can't really tell you that. So I'm just going to leave it at I love you and try to walk away." And Tybalt's like, what? So suffice to say, Mercutio steps in on Romeo's behalf and's like, "If you're not going to fight Tybalt, I'm going to fight Tybalt."
So he's trying to defend Romeo's honor here.
Because Romeo won't.
Then we get Mercutio, and he's got some great lines. One of those lines is,
"No, 'tis not so deep as a well, nor so wide as a church door, but 'tis enough, 'twill serve."
So we get him actually like making jokes about being mortally wounded, and he's kind of making light of this. But then we get this last line.
A plague of both your houses.
So it's not that he just dislikes Tybalt for killing him or for hurting him, but it's Romeo too. It's the two houses together that have complicated.
Because let's not forget, Mercutio's not related to either of them.
No.
He just happens to really like Romeo as a friend.
He's actually related to the prince. And so the prince has a moment later on in the scene where he has to make a choice.
I don't want to blame anyone in particular. I think everyone's to blame.
And part of that choice is because Tybalt kills Mercutio, his cousin. He doesn't then go for killing Romeo in revenge for Tybalt's death.
And for that offense, immediately we do exile him hence.
True act of justice.
So once Romeo sees that Mercutio is dead and knows it's Tybalt, he goes off the rail. So before he wasn't going to fight, and now he doesn't care what happens. It's either thou or I or both must go with him.
Either thou or I or both must go with them!
So he's ready to die, which is the only reason he is actually able to win the fight, because he's not as good a sword fighter as Tybalt.
But he ain't got nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. And so we have him going in, and he's just going ape on Tybalt.
Now, this entire time, let's not forget, Juliet, the last place we saw her was at the church to get married. I mean, that's pretty cool. But despite the fact that she's been married to Romeo, she has to go home and wait, because there's kind of a piece missing before this marriage is complete. So she can't just be running around with Romeo just yet. So she's at home waiting for him, thinking about how excited she is. It's kind of like...
She really wants to have sex. She's just waiting to have sex.
Yeah.
Come night, come civil night, come Romeo, thou day and night. Come gentle night, come loving black-browed night. Oh, night, 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 night. Come, 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 come. I didn't write it.
So she's waiting, she's excited, she's thinking about sex, and then we have the nurse comes in with the news. But because it's the nurse, she's not so straightforward
super clear.
in what's happening.
No. She kind of comes in all upset and emotional, screaming, "He's dead! He's dead!" and starts using Romeo's name, and Juliet's like, "Oh my god.
Romeo's dead?
Is that what happened?"
Well, no, but the nurse isn't really speaking very clearly. She's not the most educated person, and she likes to talk.
Fortunately, the nurse clarifies. No, Tybalt's dead. Romeo killed him. He, that is now your husband, killed your cousin.
So, yeah, that kind of sucks.
It does. It really puts Juliet in a really awkward situation. Do I defend my Capulet family, or am I going to side with my brand new husband?
And we get her being mad. She has a couple of lines about how awful Romeo is because she feels terrible for her cousin. But then pretty quickly she goes back on that. So the nurse starts like, yeah, Romeo sucks.
How dare you?
But yeah, how dare you is Juliet's response. She goes, oh, my tongue's going to be blistered for speaking those things about my newly made husband. And so she kind of comes to grips with what's going on because it's going to be, she realizes that Tybalt would have killed Romeo. So it's better that Romeo is alive and Tybalt is dead because there was no getting around that.
Basically, I choose my husband, not my family.
You should always choose your husband over your family. So we are now into the next scene.
We saw how Juliet reacts to Romeo killing Tybalt. Oh, and by the way, he's been banished from the city. She's not very excited and doesn't really know what to do with that information. Romeo still hasn't found out he's been banished yet, though. How does he take it?
So we get the scene with Friar Lawrence. Romeo's hiding in a cell, and he's a little depressed.
A banishment!
Yeah.
He has a bit of an emotional reaction.
It's a bit much.
And then it's him finally kind of getting the information out of Friar Lawrence. What's going to happen to him? He thought he was going to be dead, but Friar Lawrence says, no, good thing, you're just banished.
Not a problem.
But Romeo thinks it is a pretty big problem. So we get a lot of his lines about how horrible it is that he can't be here in Verona. He has to be in Mantua, and anything can look at Juliet except him. So that's the worst thing in the world.
So jealous!
And the friar is really doing his best to calm him down and show him the good thing about banishment and how it's not, being dead.
I think the friar's had it at this point.
And so we get one of your favorite lines from the friar.
Oh, yes. My favorite part with Friar Lawrence, because he's just such an awesome character, is after all this whining and blubbering and the friar attempting to explain, no, this is actually better than we could have hoped for. He says,
It is alive! There art thou happy! Tybalt would kill thee, but thou slewest Tybalt. There art thou happy! The law that threatened death becomes thy friend and turns it to exile. There art thou happy! A pack of blessings light upon thy back.
And Romeo still doesn't see it. He still doesn't see this as a positive. It's like when your parents say, oh, I know how you feel.
Oh, God, no.
Friar Lawrence is that older character. He's that fatherly figure for Romeo. He's seen the world. He knows how some things work. But Romeo isn't going to have it.
If you have not gone through the same pain and garbage I have, you don't understand.
You don't get me, Mom. No. You
No.
don't know what I mean, Dad.
No.
And so we get Romeo having this reaction. And then the nurse shows up, and we get Romeo finally seeing what his actions have caused to Juliet. The nurse says she's been crying. Romeo, hearing that she's crying his name and that it's sadness, asks for a dagger so he can stab himself. He asks the friar, where does my name live? And so, no, I've got a better dagger than that. So he asks for a dagger so he can stab his name wherever it might be.
You just have one of those in here?
We got a lot of those around here.
Scene 4 is really short.
Well, before we get to scene 4, the end of scene 3, again, the friar is sending Romeo off because he has to do the copulation kind of thing.
Oh, right, the plan.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I have a plan.
So
our hope was shattered, but no, Friar's got hope 2.0.
yeah, and so we've got this plan. There's a great plan Friar has. And the plan actually could work. We know as an audience it's not going to work, but it could work. And so
it's fun to watch him try.
Yeah, and so he's got a plan. And the plan is to get Romeo to Mantua, which is the neighboring town from Verona. And then once a little bit of time has passed, people have calmed down a little bit in Verona, we're going to let everybody know that Romeo and Juliet are married. And then they're going to welcome Romeo back after enough time. And then he'll be able to come back, be with Juliet, and all will be forgiven.
You are an unstoppable good idea machine!
First, Romeo has to go and see Juliet one more time.
But we can't really knock boots in a play at this time.
No.
And
There's a lot of issues.
Yeah, so what can you show instead of that?
I know what you can show. Act 3, Scene 4 is really short, but it actually gives us some very important information.
The days of the week.
Right? I mean, we really didn't know when anything was happening. All we can, at the very least right now, say is we're only on day 2.
Yeah, we've been saying, day 2, day 2, day 2. Now we know day 2 is actually Monday. So the play starts on Sunday. Nicely, the first day of the week is the first day of the play as we get through this thing.
That said, this scene, though incredibly short, has a real issue to Plan 2.0.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
It does.
It puts a wrinkle in that plan right away.
Because everything about 2.0 was about time. Getting Romeo out of Verona into Mantua, waiting until everybody calms down.
And then we'll tell them about the marriage and people will be happy because Juliet's married.
But Juliet's really sad right now.
Yeah.
And her dad doesn't like to see his little girl sad.
No.
And
he's a nice dad, kind of.
Well, yeah. But you know what I think is the best way to cheer any little 13-year-old up? Hasty marriage.
Oh, yes. That'll cheer everybody up right away.
To a stranger.
Yeah, to somebody you don't even know.
Right.
Yeah. And then he asks Lady Capulet to go tell Juliet the good news. But what's wrong with that?
Somebody's still upstairs.
Oh, the copulating that's going on updoors. Oh.
Act 3, Scene 5.
There's a lot of stuff happening in this scene.
Yeah, there's a lot that needs to happen. We already know that our brand new plan is in jeopardy at this point, and we also know that Romeo and Juliet are together.
They are.
A little bit. But we also know that Romeo needs to leave as soon as possible because he has been banished, and the prince promised that if he was seen within Verona walls, he can't stop it. So Romeo needs to leave as soon as possible, but that's a little tough to do.
We have Juliet and Romeo saying goodbye to one another.
But this is a goodbye that is dripping with foreshadowing. So, at this point, as they are breaking away from each other, Shakespeare puts forth a lot of foreshadowing for our two characters. He has, of course, that divide with Juliet up on her balcony. Romeo has lowered himself down out of her reach again. And there's this very visual moment where Juliet says, "Oh God, I have an ill-divining soul. Methinks I see thee now. Thou art so low as one dead at the bottom of a tomb." He's descending into darkness, kind of like in a pit, like you would going down into the grave.
And then Romeo's response is, and trust me now, love, in my eyes so do you, dry sorrow drinks our blood, adieu, adieu. And so he's talking about the sorrow, the sadness is kind of pulling the blood from their cheeks and it's making them look pale. But then we get this adieu, adieu. So adieu means goodbye, and it's kind of Shakespeare code in a way. So when his characters say adieu, adieu, it tends to mean
that those two characters will not see the other alive again.
Yeah. So once Romeo's gone, the nurse is kind of stalling Lady Capulet as she's coming in the room. And then once Lady Capulet arrives with this great news, hey, you're getting married, aren't you going to be so excited?
Dad comes in the door. And when he finds out Juliet is not super excited about getting married to Paris in 3 days...
he does a quick turn.
It escalates quickly.
It does. It escalates very quickly.
Yeah.
He went from this, happy-go-lucky dad to that guy in Act 1 that's ready to run out with a long sword to kill his enemies. And now that's kind of aimed at his daughter.
These young baggage, disobedient rats!
You are to blame, my lord, to rate her so.
This, you mumbling fool! I tell you what, get thee to church Thursday, or never after look me in the face, and you be mine. I give you to my friend, and you be not hang, beg, starve, die in the streets. Just do it. Bethink you, I am not before swine!
Once Lord Capulet has cleared the room and everybody out of it, we have the nurse and Juliet together, and the nurse, her advice to Juliet isn't really what Juliet wants to hear.
But let's track the nurse's advice, because let's just lay out Juliet's situation right now. She is married to somebody who has been banished from the town. She is on deck to get married again to, let's be honest, there's nothing wrong with Paris.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Everything about their arrangement maybe seems weird to us now, but back then would have been pretty normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so he is 100% the safe bet for Juliet, and the nurse is trying her best to explain that. Basically, let go of that first marriage and go into the second match with a better outcome, with a better chance at a happy life.
And so the nurse is trying to help, but it's not what Juliet wants to hear. And so we get Juliet kind of kicking the nurse out. She says, "Go, counselor, thou and my bosom henceforth shall be twain. I'll to the friar to know his remedy. If all else fail, myself have the power to die." So she's ready to get rid of the nurse, go see the friar, because he's the one with the plan that could have worked, but now we have got this wrinkle in the plan.
And it's the only other person who's, like,
in the know.
In the know.
Yeah. And so now we have her ready to go, and if Friar doesn't have a plan, her plan is off herself.
Yeah.
We had a lot of stuff happening. We've got this slide up here that talks about what's going on day 1, which is now we know Sunday. Day 2 is done, which is Monday.
That was, by the way, the longest Monday in history.
It was a very long Monday.
Way too much happened for a Monday.
There's got to be a Garfield meme somewhere about how long that Monday was.
Right? Maybe that's where it came from.
Maybe. And then now we're at the start of day 3, Tuesday morning. And so Tuesday morning is where Juliet and Romeo say goodbye. They'll see each other for the last time alive then. And now we get Juliet off to see the friar to figure out what can the new plan be.
Now, moving forward in our story, there's really just that cycle back to chaos. And we've definitely made things a little bit chaotic now. So when we think about what Acts 4 and 5 need to do, and we remember what the plot line gives us, we have arrived at our falling action and a resolution, which we already know what the resolution is going to be.
Yeah, they're going to be dead.
I will kill myself, like Romeo and Juliet. The Claire Danes one.
But we don't know how.
We don't know how. And that's the piece that's kind of dangling for the audience, is we don't know how they're going to die.
I'd love to know.
Hopefully we make another one of these for you next week to kind of give you some more information.
Oh, are you inviting me to actually do it up front now?
Sure. Why not? I guess I won't steal your stuff anymore. Bye.